sometimes when you feel like you're the farthest from that thing that you really desire is actually when you're the closest. Breathe that in and let's talk about it. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. Okay, guys, I am so happy you're here because I know that you have a big vision for yourself and your life, and that's why you're listening to this podcast, because you started over and now you're like, what do I do? And that's why I thought it'd be really timely. I know I've been talking a lot about going through some hard things, and I had so many people relate to that episode that if life has hit you hard, this is for you. If you haven't listened, give it a listen if you're going through it. But that really sparked something in me, and I realized that a lot of us are going through the same kind of feeling where there's just been some setbacks in a lot of people close to me's lives. And I feel like it's a constant theme for a lot of people right now where they're just like feeling very lost. And that's why that episode hit so much. And so I wanted to kind of bring some of my like happy, positive perspective energy back to this episode and talk about why it's so important not to give up when those setbacks come into your life. Because oftentimes we can be like, maybe this is the sign I quit. Maybe this is the sign it's not the right path. Maybe this is the sign that this isn't really for me. But what I'll tell you that I know to be true in my heart is that if that passion, belief, that drive to be that thing, to have that thing in your life is really rooted in like integrity and who you are and the mission you feel like you're meant here to do, whatever that is, then it's not a sign to quit. It's a sign that you're almost there. And I want to talk about I've been on this topic for a minute in my mind because I've talked about it before. I love to stack evidence. I love to show my subconscious that it can do things when it starts to doubt me. And I want you to take on these practices too, because they're so helpful. I promise you, from a growth mindset perspective, when you're trying to take challenging circumstances, your reality, and really just keep going when it feels heavy, when it feels hard, when it feels like it's purposeless because you're not seeing the outward reality reflect to you. Meaning, like, think about anyone creative, whether you're putting out, music, whether you're putting out, like for me, these podcast episodes, whether it's your business and you're selling a product, like there's not many people that they just put a product up and then they become $1 million company overnight. Like there is so much work and belief. And that's the bigger piece. There's obviously hard work in anything that you do if you want to make it successful. And when we say hard work, sometimes that just means continually showing up, consistency. And that is why I started with sometimes when you feel like you're the farthest from the thing, you're right there. Because I truly believe that when you want a big life or you want something that's outside of what you already have today, right? Whether that's you're currently in a 9-to-5 and you want to have a really successful business, whether it's I want to make this thing in my life work better than it does now, it's going to take consistency over and over. And so that moment where you feel like you should just give up, throw in the towel and break is probably more so the moment to say, okay, here's where we really step up and show that this is what I want from life. And I know oftentimes, like I said, that your subconscious can come in or your people around you can maybe doubt that. And you're like, I don't know. But I sometimes so I was reading last night because I geek out on this stuff I told you. Like mindset is huge. Master the mind and you literally master everything. But obviously this is easier said than done. But anyone successful, any person successful that you admire in your life, they have survived seasons that you didn't see. I saw that somewhere and I was like, that is absolute facts. There is no one that has gotten super successful, or it's probably a very big small percentage or an outlier of the people that just got there without adversities and struggles and the thought of quitting. But that's why they speak about like your passion. So you really have to want it. So it's when it's something that you want so much, then you kind of owe it to yourself to keep going, even when you're like, I don't know how this is going to work and it doesn't seem to be working. And that doesn't mean like don't pivot if you feel called to go a different way about it, but don't give up. And I loved this quote, like throwing it back to old school, the light bulb, where Thomas Edison literally reframed. And let's talk about reframing, because I know this is really helpful when you're in that low spot to reframe your circumstances into something different. And he literally said, because it took him like 10,000 tries before he finally developed the light bulb. And literally, like, you know, the lights in this room, like we wouldn't even be doing this thing if, you know, Buddy Thomas didn't like keep going, right? And it like has a ripple effect on the whole world. I mean, sure, maybe later someone, but think of all the pictures that were taken with the lights on in that time, because, you know, Tommy E decided to keep going. And he said it like this. I'm acting like I know him, but he said, I didn't fail. I found 10,000 ways that it won't work. And that is the kind of emotional intelligence and reframing I think it takes for you to truly be successful. And that's what I kind of want to challenge you to think about doing in your own life. Where are you framing your circumstances to your disadvantage instead of framing them to elevate you and keep going on the mission that you felt called to even begin in the first place? Because anything that you're going after, you felt strongly enough about it, you have a million things you could be doing with your time. If you chose to go all in or to try really hard on this business, this career, this whatever path that you're going on, then there's a reason. And through that, you will be, and it does feel like tested. You'll be tested, but it's not as like a punishment. It's more like, are you ready to be this person that you're saying that you want to be? Because they're going to have a big life, to have these things, you're going to be able to have to regulate yourself. And when I say regulate yourself, regulating your nervous system is absolutely something that is key to being able to achieve things in life. Because when you are trying to hold a big life, you're trying to navigate big things, you really have to be able to calm and ground yourself. It's just the key to receiving. It's almost like if you're running from a bear, you're not getting handed $1 million. Like you're literally not thinking about anything else but escaping the scenario you're in. And that's why when you're able to just leisurely walk down a path, and even if you see, you know, something here and there, you can maintain your focus, then you're probably going to run into $1 million on the path. I mean, that sounds a little, but I'm just saying, like, you're more in receiving mode. You can see it there. When you're running from a bear, you probably would miss it. Your focus isn't there. And mental toughness has been something that I have continually been working on so much as these challenges come up, which is why I want to just remind you that we can have hard things and then we can come back and be like, okay, I am stronger for that. It's not just something that people say. It's me taking those challenges and putting them into mental practice and saying, okay, how do I reframe this scenario? And I think about like even Michael Jordan, like everyone knows Michael Jordan. Hello, like one of the greatest talents, athletes of all time in his respected field. And we all know the story that like literally he gets like dropped from his high school varsity team or whatever. And instead of that being like the sign, I guess basketball is not my thing, which can you even imagine a basketball history without MJ? Like, no. But if you try, it would be him going like, oh, well, I got dropped, so I guess I'm going to just pivot and do something completely different, even though this is my dream. And instead he was like, okay, how do I get better? How do I take this? And maybe these stories are cliche, but I feel like it's such a reminder that Michael Jordan, as amazing as he is, and we think of him at that high level, there was a point in his life, in his basketball career, in which he wasn't good enough for the team. And he took that, instead of accepting that, He was like, no, how do I make this work? How do I be better? So he just trained harder. He figured out his mental discipline, all of those things. And then he became who he was. And I know for some people, it can feel like thinking about someone like who invented the light bulb and Michael Jordan and like maybe even the Beatles who were like denied, their first record label, like, no, we don't see bands with instruments like being the thing. They're on their way out. And then they become like a global sensation, So it's like one door closed, what it seemingly feels like like a setback in where you're going could absolutely be the one last test, may you have it. Are you going to fully send it? Are you going to just own this? Are you going to like full send on your dream and say, okay, great, next, and I'm just going to keep going? It's almost like you're trenching through the mud and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it's like, are you going to stop here, sit here, pout, decide to turn around? Or are you going to be like, at some point the mud's going to crumble and I'm going to be where I need to be, like where I know I'm meant to be, where I want to be. I'm going to live this dream because I don't see any other possible scenario. I don't see failure. I'm just going to continue to move forward. And I truly believe that when you take each challenge, setback, lesson and frame it as a lesson, instead of a challenge and a setback, you frame it and go, okay, what is this teaching me? What do I need to do differently? Why is this happening to me? And I truly believe most things in your life happen to you for a reason. Actually, I believe everything happens to you for a reason. And I don't think there's coincidences, in my opinion. I think that you are given things that you need to be given to move through the world and have that opportunity to move through the world in the way in which you're best suited to. And you get to decide, though, if you take that as, okay, I have this really challenging thing. Am I going to wallow in my sorrow about it? I'm going to sit here and think of all the reasons why this is unfair. This is not right. I'm never going to get there. All those repeating thoughts. Are we going to go, okay, what lesson am I taking? What do I need to learn? How do I need to get better so I can hold this bigger vision so I can keep going in the direction that I'm meant to? And you get to decide. That these challenges and the hard times are really like that place in the road where you get to that fork in the road where you get to decide which way are you going. And that's your free will. Like, look at you, choice of free will. So you get to decide. So remember, at the end of the day, like, my biggest thing that I had to tell myself when I'm like wanting to wallow in my sorrow, like, why is this happening? Oh my gosh, me, blah, blah. I literally have to be like, I can accept that this does not feel comfortable, that I do not wish this was my circumstance, but I can't change it. I can just move through it and learn from it. And I literally have to like sit, and that's happened to me. And I want to tell kind of a little bit of a personal story because I'm sure you guys, like I said, if you listen to that episode, I was at a really low point and just going through my head. And I had woke up and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm literally thinking about it. I'm like, I just don't know. So I hadn't woke up with like anxiety and worry for a long time, but I was just like, this is where I'm going. Like, I bought in on this vision. I've told people like, this is where I'm going. And now I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I got down on my knees and I was just like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. And I heard clearly, I wasn't planning on sharing this story, but here we go. That it was like, I just need you to be stronger. And it wasn't like in this rude, it was just like, I just need you to be stronger. And I know that nothing asked of me is something that I cannot do. We all have that strength within us to move through hard things. We have a great track record. We're here. You're listening to this podcast. That means you've gotten through some crazy things and you know it. You could stop right now and think about it and be like, man, I've been through some things and I am still here. And this is no different than that. But in the moment when we're feeling it, it just feels so heavy. It's just easier to kind of sometimes pity yourself, get into that victim. Why is this me? It seems like everyone else has it so much easier, or they're not dealing with these things. Newsflash, we all have our own challenges. And that's why they say you never know what someone's going through. And that is really the truth about all of us, when we have to remember, when we think everyone else's life is going better, we have no idea what everyone is going through. And so I can promise you, because I am someone that people seem to feel comfortable with telling me about some of their deepest, hardest things, the amount of people that have not, like pretty recently, and I might have mentioned this, like had told me about potentially like no longer existing, were people that I would have never expected. So when I tell you that we're all going through things, we truly are. And that's part of like why I just want to be so vulnerable on this podcast with you, because I want you to know that it's not just you going through the hard thing. It doesn't take away from that hard thing, but it's not worth giving up. Your dream, your focus, your life, like none of it. It's all temporary and it feels heavy in the moment, but just put it down. And so, because you are so close to where you want to be, but again, like the voice said to me, like, I just needed to be stronger. And I suddenly was like out of my pity and into the mindset of like, yeah, I am stronger than this. Not like suppressing the feeling of the hardness, but acknowledging that I have so much strength and that this is really up to me. Because if I'm hearing I needed to be stronger, it means this path is for me and I just have to be strong enough to endure it. And I know that for you too. That is the moment. And I'm going to give you just like a positive reframe on this, you know, as I talk about the strength and kind of just so maybe you can get into character here on going after your dream. I like to think about it like you are the character and you're applying for this role. Like you're an actor, whatever, and you want to play this big part. So whatever you want to do, be that big business owner, you want to achieve all these goals, be this big artist, be this podcast host that everyone like cannot wait to hear their newest episode, whatever it is. And you're like, you know what that life would look like to some extent. You're going through your mind with it. But when you're going through the process to get to that, it's almost like you're auditioning for that part. Like, can you continue to believe that you are that person, that you are on that stage, or you're in that boardroom, or you're doing that thing, whether even it's just like getting a promotion? Can you see yourself there? And can you hold that vision of that for your life? And then when something happens, right, they're like testing you, or up there auditioning, and they throw some loop at you. That loop or that challenge or that perceived setback is the thing that they're going, well, the person in that life would know how to handle this. So if you want to be them, you're going to have to take this and you're going to have to be able to handle it. And if you can't handle that in the life that you have now, how can I know that you're ready for the life you're calling in? And it's a test of that, because we have to evolve who we are to become who we want to be, right? We're here. Who we want to be is here. So we can't just jump there without embodying fully this person. And this person would be able to chill when that thing happened. They're not pulling a like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? My life's crumbling. Like, they might have a moment of thoughts, like they're not perfect, they're still human, but you know that they're going to be able to handle those situations. And so I like to think of it like a training ground, an audition. You're just literally continually to train and audition for the part that you're fulfilling, that you want to fulfill. You want to get that part. So keep being that person, even when you don't see yourself in the lights yet. Even when maybe you're not on that stage, Maybe when everyone hasn't caught up with it, you're still just going and going. And that, I promise you, is when the breakthrough comes. Because one thing that I'll say as I'm kind of like doing this and going all in on myself and a little bit of just hopefully inspiration for you as you move through whatever you're trying to get to in your life, is that it feels quiet. There is often a mess before the miracles, and you might have to manage through that alone. And the belief in not only your mental toughness in yourself to get through anything, but your unwavering belief in yourself has to be there, because not everyone's clapping. And people don't normally clap until you're already there. And so you have to just clap so loudly for yourself. And once you start getting used to just celebrating your own small wins and clapping for yourself, that's when it arrives. Because you have detached from it being your truth. Like, you're happily just proud of yourself and moving towards what you want, and you've detached from the outcome. You're not doing it just for the outcome. You're doing it because you believe that that is the way for you to move through. You're going to just continue to go down that path and figure it out as you go. And that's just where you're at. And so I really just wanted this to be the reminder for the people that life has hit them hard, for the people that are wondering, do I keep going? How do I know I'm almost there? It's like, you wouldn't get lessons to prepare you if you weren't even getting like a second audition for the part, right? It means we are ensuring and preparing you for the big life, the big business, the big thing that you're asking for. And we need you to continually show us that you're ready to play that part. And that's how you know. And lastly, I want to remind you that your decisions in those moments, they're clocking the evidence, right? So each time you say yes to something you're afraid of, you know, you get offered some opportunity. I remember when I was getting offered to speak in this women's conference in Nashville, and it ended up being really last minute. And I wanted to be like, can I even do it so last minute? Da, da, da. And I was just like, I have to be decisive and say yes. Because if I'm asking for this life, I have to move like the person that has it. And she would be decisive and confident in her yes. And so as you're moving in those directions, you will be offered things, and those are also character developments. Can I say yes before I feel ready? And that's how you'll know. And I will end this by saying, if you're listening and you feel this, and it feels like nothing is moving, I want you to know that you might be standing right at the doorway. So don't quit before the breakthrough. You're closer than you think. I wrote that at literally 11 p.m. last night in my bed, and I just felt like that was what I needed to tell y'all to end this episode. But I appreciate you all for being here so much, going in on your dreams, whatever that looks like. It doesn't even, I just want you to, even if the dreams just means doing something you love another day and not letting the smallest setback define the happiness, the joy, the things that you want to do. Just keep going, keep swimming, and keep listening to this podcast. And make sure to give it 5 stars. Give it a review. I know you want to, and you've been just thinking about it and you haven't hit that button yet. So make sure to do that. Subscribe. So much more to come. And thank you again for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.